So Stephen, I know, again, you were talking about this week where you had everything thrown at you, all the tests and scans and all that. And it's quite frankly, one of the worst parts for a lot of people because you don't know what you're dealing with. There are a lot of questions and you can have a lot of anxiety, obviously, during that time. So I'd love for you to take us through that first oncology appointment you had. What do you remember the doctor saying to you about what tests you're going to have to undergo? And then can you sum up that experience for us?
That was a very powerful first meeting with that doctor. So at that first appointment, he ordered for me a CAT scan, a PET scan, a bone marrow biopsy, more blood work, an X-ray. Am I missing anything? Did I say a PET scan? I don't remember, but a PET scan um, in the course of a week, and said, let's get you back here this time next week. And he was ready for me to walk out. And I'm saying, hold on, I need to know, what are we chasing? What are we ruling out? What's the game plan here? And that was the very first time I heard the words chronic lymphocytic leukemia. I knew of leukemia, I knew of lymphoma as blood cancers, did not know the different types, the nuances, what they all meant. And I had never heard of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So that was the first time that I heard that. He explained to me a little bit about what it was. But truthfully, even he at that stage of the game was saying, I don't think that's what we're dealing with, but we need to cover all our bases and we need to make sure that we can rule that out. So I walk out of the office, no, let me back up. I'm getting ready to walk out of the office and my wife says, well, maybe we should let Dr. Shore know a little bit about your lifestyle in case he wants to make any limitations or changes. And I looked at her and I'm saying, no, 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 I don't want to tell him anything because he's going to end up taking something away from me and I don't want that. But I did. And I told him what I do for, quote, fun. I told him that I'm an endurance athlete. I race marathons and triathlons and Ironmans and this is what I do for fun. This is what I do to feed my soul. And his first reaction was probably a good idea to give that stuff a rest for now, until we figure this stuff out. Stephanie, I tell you, I was ready to walk right out, because I just didn't think that that was the right approach or the right doc. But we talked through it some more. And that's when we reached a middle agreement and said, again, if you're feeling fatigued, I don't want you to do anything. If if you have some energy, then, then go for it. So it was a little bit interesting.
I do have to ask you, I just have to interject because
Sure.
you were able to have a conversation with your doctor that I think a lot of patients have difficulty doing or having, which is to say, okay, doc, you're the medical expert, but hey, this is still my life and I want to save it and I want to be here and I want to, do everything I can, but it's still me and my life. How did you have that conversation? Like, do you have any tips for people on how to meet that middle, how to navigate a conversation like that?
I think it comes down to, if you are not your advocate, no one's going to be your advocate, right? You have to know what your passions are, and you have to know what drives you, and you have to know what's important to you. And if someone's going to say to you, don't do any of that anymore while I figure this out, it needs to be a conversation, right? You need to remain true to yourself. You need to remain true to your own spirit and your own soul and figure out, if you're really telling me this, let's understand why and let's figure out if there's a middle ground. And that's what we ended up doing. I mean, I understood where he's coming from. He didn't know me, right? And he was taking the ultra conservative route. And I was trying to say, but I'm not an ultra conservative person. So let's align ourselves here and figure out what we can do. I'm going to fast forward a whole bunch of years because I don't want to lose the thought. At the time, he thought I was completely out of my mind because of my lifestyle. Today, he's a runner and he blames me for that. And every time I go in for my appointment, one of the first things we talk about is how our runs have been going, which I just think is the coolest thing because we've both come full circle. I've become kind of a CLL expert. He's become a little bit of an athlete, and that doesn't happen every day. I think that was a cool exchange of whatever that we had, which was pretty neat.
Ideas and energy. Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to hear because you have had a long relationship. I mean, ultimately, that's what it is.
Yeah.
This person has become a part of your life. It's been many
Yep.
years, and you're able to sit here and say, we actually have developed more than just this sort of, doctor patient thing. I've influenced him to take a more active lifestyle. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty neat. And so getting back to your original questions, I made the mistake after that first appointment of going home, opening my laptop and Googling CLL. So another key piece of advice to never, ever, ever do. Don't just blindly Google your disease, because for every one good resource website out there, there's going to be 15 garbage ones that's going to ultimately steer you down the wrong path and give you some wrong information and can really wreak havoc on your confidence in your psyche. Because the first couple of hits that I came up with were memorial pages that were set up by loved ones who lost someone to CLL. So that was my first foray into, I'm going to look into CLL. No, close the laptop. I thought I was going to die. I walked away. I'm like, this isn't going to be good, right? The takeaway there is, and I did so after the fact, and I said to him, can you give me some reputable sources? Can you give me some good links, some good organizations that I can stay connected with, that I can do my own research, my own homework, that I can understand more about my disease? And that's a key takeaway for everybody. You have to you have to learn about it, but you can't just do it blindly. You need to ask for trusted resources.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And Dr. Google is always there, and there are a lot of different holes to fall down into. Going back to, the process, all the procedures you were, basically subjected to, if you could sum up, going through the CT, PET scan, x-rays, the bone marrow biopsy. I know there's a little while ago. So if there could be some guidance to people who haven't gone through that yet, on how to manage the anxiety, right? Scanxiety is another word that we learn in cancer, which is just the anxiety you experience waiting for
Mhm.
test results. Do you have any more takeaways that you want to, bestow on the people who are watching and reading
Yeah, I
this?
mean, a test is a test is a test. It's not always the be all end all to anything, right? I think you need to have those scans, you need to have those tests to help paint the picture. It contributes to the information. It helps with the ultimate decisioning. It typically, one scan, one test, one exam is not the be all end all anything. And I think it's really important that they get evaluated appropriately, properly by the right people, and discussions are had around those too. In other words, your your PET scan showed this. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. Tell me what you saw in that PET scan that was frightening or concerning, and what are some other possible things that might present that same type of concern. For me, it was also understand I really at this point still thought everyone else was crazy, so I was just going through the motions to satisfy everyone else. Um, and I thought at the end of the day I would come back with getting an apology from everyone saying, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry to alarm you. Here, take two of these and you'll be fine in a month." But that wasn't the case. I think that the big thing for me was just you have to take it in stride. You can't overreact to any single test. It's one piece of the puzzle, and it's a puzzle that might have several different ways of coming together. And you need to maintain a sense of being open, and a sense of you have to maintain a sense of positivity and a sense of hope.
Yeah, those are powerful words. And I mean, you went through it, and you've been through it. I know a lot more since that 1 week. But it was just that week, and then Stephen, you said you got the diagnosis. It was February 24th. Um, how did you process it, or did you in that moment? What did you remember your doctor telling you about this official diagnosis? And then how did you break the news to your loved ones? I think people are always wanting to know, how can I learn from other people who've gone through the
So
process?
Dr. Shore had all the results right there in front of him, and he basically just said, he ran through the different results, saying conclusively everything confirmed the same thing, right? That what the hunch that we had from the elevated white count from the ear, nose, and throat tonsillectomy guy, everything else painted a similar picture. Um, and that's when he said, there's little doubt that we're looking at anything other than chronic lymphocytic leukemia. This presents itself like a classic case of CLL for a number of reasons. And he talked about the size of the lymph nodes. He talked about the white count. He talked about, and little did I know that I felt the tonsils, but the rest of my lymphatic system, my spleen was enlarged. All my unseen lymph nodes were also oversized. So it was my white count was up around 70 or 80,000. So it was what it was, right? So yeah, I mean, you just you listen, you hear the plan, you hear the protocol, and he says, of course, you're welcome to talk to any number of other people, which I did do, but I also didn't want to waste time. So I moved ahead with his plan of treatment, at least getting that stuff scheduled, and then quickly ran home, reached out to some other folks, reached out to a doc at University of Pennsylvania, reached out to another doc I knew, I was close friends with within the multi-sport triathlon world, and sent them my results, talked about protocols, talked about standard care for CLL, and without even seeing them, but with just seeing my results, I kind of rallied my team that way. And they were all on board with A, the diagnosis, and B, the plan of attack, which was at the time Fludara and Rituxan.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I actually want to sort of still spend some time talking about that before we shift to the next clip, which will be about the treatment, is you did get a second opinion, a third opinion. I mean, and some of these people, it sounds like you knew personally, but any message there for people, time permitting, if they have it, on pursuing a second opinion or just to get more opinions than the one that you get presented the first time?
Absolutely. If in some cases, it's hard to give examples of when it might be warranted and when it might not be. But I would say in most cases, it definitely warrants a second opinion, because as much as I love my doctor, um, he's human. Newsflash, he's human, right? And and I was meeting him for the first time. So there are good auto mechanics and there are bad auto mechanics. There are physicians who might be really good at diagnosing this kind of thing, and there might be guys who, I don't know. So I didn't know. So it was critical that I had a conversation with another physician and multiple physicians. And if the doctor has your best interest first and foremost, if the doctor is what he should be, he would embrace that. He would welcome that. In fact, he would even help facilitate that and would potentially give you some names and some contacts for you to reach out and have that second opinion. And I'll take it one step further. If he's really good, he's not only going to help facilitate the conversation, you will allow those two physicians to get on the same page. And if it's a matter of hashing something out medically, they will do that. And I had that happen personally, where my two docs, my primary guy might recommend to refer something, and he'll say to me, but I don't want to do that until we talk to Dr. Porter, who is in a totally different network, right? But is very much an expert in this field. And they would often bounce ideas off of one another in terms of my treatment, my care.